everyone is stepping up their game in a more competitive environment. So I really need to take the time and effort to be able to articulate what makes us special. I think having peace of mind is one of the most important things you can do for making a decision. So you have to make sure that you almost have to see into the future and be like, what's going to work in the future.
Welcome to Trailblazers, the podcast where we sit down with contrarian tech leaders who found conventional success in unconventional ways. Today on the show, I am so excited to be joined by Paige Finn Doherty. Paige is the founding partner of Behind Genius Ventures, an early-stage venture firm managing nearly $14 million in AUM. Behind Genius makes concentrated investments in pre-seed and seed-stage companies led by technical storytellers across applied AI, frontier tech, and what's next. A writer and former engineer, Paige first broke into venture capital in a truly unconventional way by writing a best-selling children's book for adults about how venture capital works. It's called Seed to Harvest. At the time, she was working as a developer success engineer at WorkOS, a role she actually landed through Twitter. Paige's impact and storytelling have earned her widespread recognition. She was featured on the Forbes 30 Under 30 cover in venture capital, not just on the list, on the cover. Great photo, in 2022, named a Rising SDSU Aztec awardee, and most recently inducted into the Rancho Bernardo High School Hall of Fame. Originally from San Diego and now based in San Francisco, Paige continues to bring transparency, creativity, and heart to the world of venture through storytelling and curiosity. Let's welcome Paige.
Erica, I'm so happy to be here today.
I'm so happy to be here. You know, it's funny, I know all these things about you, but I've never read your bio. So it's fun to read back through it and hear all your accomplishments in one spot.
You made some adjustments, which I loved.
You know, you got to do it ad hoc a little. You know, you never know how it's going to come out, and I want it to be natural. Amazing. Okay, so let's get into it. Icebreaker question to start.
Okay.
You can answer this however you'd like. So on the podcast, we talk a lot about choosing the hard paths. Mm-hmm. So far, you've been doing this venture journey for many years. Before that, obviously, you were an engineer. What has been the hardest part of your whole journey so far, and the part that almost broke you?
Let me write down the question.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful Olivia Dean song called The Hardest Part, which is the first thing that came to mind. But
I love Olivia Dean. But I saw something yesterday that she's not going to win the New Artist Grammy. I don't know if you know about this. It's like a whole lore, like who's going to win.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I'm very devastated about it. She's not nominated for a major category, so they said it's statistically very unlikely that she wins. They think it's going to be Leon Thomas. So you heard it here first.
She'll grow into it, I'm sure.
I hope.
The hardest part of my journey so far. Well, I guess there are things that people from the outside would say are hard, but they were just it was the work required to raise the first and second funds. I think fundraising, whether you are a founder or an emerging manager or even an established manager, is challenging, and because of the regulations with 506B, you can't talk about it when you're going through it. So I think my fund to fundraise was definitely a hard and long process coming from after 2021 when we raised the first fund. It was woo, let's go. It was a very fast fundraise. I think we closed it in 9 months, and then fund 2 was a much longer, year plus long process, and the market had changed, and it was everyone is stepping up their game in a more competitive environment. So I really need to take the time and effort to be able to articulate what makes us special and the work that we put into building Behind Genius. So I think that in particular helped me. It was the pressure makes diamonds. It was a very challenging process to go through.
Yeah, I think anyone who's even tried fundraising or tried honestly sales of any capacity knows what it's like to try to get those shots on goal. It's certainly a grind. Obviously, you raised in a different environment and for your second fund than your first fund.
Yeah.
What were some other differences with your first fund and your second fund that maybe either made it harder, made it easier? I'd love to hear more.
I think a lot of it was market related. Well, and then I guess on the second fund, I was trying to figure out my individual investing style because I had a business partner in the first fund who's great. And when we worked together, I feel like we had an investing style together that we had worked to articulate. And then in Fund 2, I was like, okay, I'm doing this as a solely GP. Like, how does that change my investing style? How does that change the story I tell about the investments that I made? And then what do I want my investing style to be going forward? Because I think one of the things that some managers maybe don't anticipate is that when you pitch a fund, like that's the strategy you're going to carry out for the next 3 years. Or 3 or 4, depending on your deployment period. So you have to make sure that you almost have to like see into the future and be like, what's going to work in the future? And so I was trying to figure out like what my thesis would be. And it honestly took we had a rough thesis around the future of work and play. And then it evolved into, okay, like let's dig deeper into the storytelling. And then after I got to work with some incredible entrepreneurs who had backgrounds in both engineering and were really compelling communicators, I was like, oh, okay, the technical storyteller is really the founder archetype I'm looking for. And so that kind of clicked in. But I didn't have the language for it until probably like halfway into raising the fund, raising or deploying. So I think finding the right language to encompass what you do.
It's so hard to narrow it down because I also think what I always talk about is like you want to be vague enough so that you're thought of for a lot of great opportunities, but specific enough so that you're thought of for a lot of great opportunities. And it's like a constant battle to figure out what your like naming archetype is for what you invest in. How did technical storytellers come about? Was it just, you having these examples of great founders from Fund 1? Was it a conversation with someone where they sort of said it back to you? Do you remember the moment where you realized that?
Yeah, it was actually, I got a lot of pushback when I launched our fund and led with storytelling. Because there were people who were like, oh, like, do they have to be, like, I think storytelling is misconstrued as this very, like, light, fluffy, like, thing. And I feel like I don't believe that. Like, I believe it is, like, a fundamental skill that's really important to company building. But there was an element of groundedness and discipline that was missing from that nomenclature that I kept getting pushback on. So I was like, I need to incorporate one more word. What is it going to be? And so I was like trying out a bunch of different things. But one exercise I did was I laid out our portfolio companies and the founders we'd backed. And I think there were a few that really stood out as this archetype. So one is Ray Jiang. He's an incredible reinforcement learning researcher. He was previously at DeepMind. He built Manivo, which is AI agents for manufacturing. And the way he is able to blend his technical background with the ability to go from product to team to market to landscape to like identifying all the competitors. And we talked to this person, we understand like this element of the market, was really impressive. And then the other was Ariana Thacker with Moldco, who I think you know pretty well. Yeah. And her background's in chemical engineering and also founded a venture firm and then founded Moldco because of her journey getting mold illness and being really sick. And she really brings that like rigor and technical background and execution level plus storytelling and like category creating. So that blend of traits I find I just love working with those founders. Want to find more of them.
Yeah, if you're listening, come find Paige.
If you're listening.
Yeah, I think honestly the easiest way to explain taste in founder profile is to just give like examples of portfolio companies because it's just that's kind of the only way that it clicks. I want to talk to you about, so obviously there were a lot of accolades, all the Forbes Under 30 cover being one that was focused on you being a younger venture capitalist. And I think you and I both talk sometimes about age and people's obsession with age, hence the under 30 list. But I wanted to talk about like why start your firm when you did. We won't get into specifics about age, but it was earlier in your career. We'll say that. It's extremely impressive that you did that. You started a firm so young. Why start it then? Why start a venture firm at the young age versus going to get experience at another firm, going to start another company, all these different options? It's brave and it's inspiring, but I'd love to hear more about why.
Why not?
Why not?
That was, yeah, why not? I think when that was my goal. So starting from junior year, I was like, I want to launch a venture firm one day, and I want to take the craft really seriously, and I want to be one of the greats, and I will like put the work in to do that. And so I was just like, why not? Like,
what's stopping me?
Yeah, like it's like binary whether you raise the fund or not. It's like you do or you don't, and it'll be like some amount, and even if it's small, like you will be in the game making those decisions. And one of our earliest investors, Johnny Steindorf, who built Distributed Global into this like massive powerhouse, was like, the way you invest $500K will be the way you invest $5 billion one day. So take those decisions very seriously, and I feel like we have, and I've learned a lot through that process.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What was the pushback that you got from folks? Did you find that it was more that they were excited that you had a younger, fresher perspective, or did you find that they thought otherwise? Because I think there's so much to be said for having investors who are at the same age and have the same lived experience as the founders that they're seeing. Mm-hmm. But then there's also the argument of, do you need to have more shots on goal? Will the older founders respect you? Like that's something that I deal with for sure. And it's definitely been something I've had to figure out.
I think on the pushback side, are you talking about from the LP side or the founder side?
Either. Like everyone, even co-investors, right? Like the ecosystem, like what's your own internal narrative around that? And like, how do you push back, or do you just rock with it?
I don't think about it like that. In fact, I almost think like actively against it. Like my mom always says I'm very old soul, and I feel like I took that energy into venture, and I got some really good advice 4 or 5 months into fundraising for our first fund from Kanye at Kindred Ventures, and he's had like an incredible career. He kind of stops me in the middle of my pitch, and at the time I was like 22, and I was like, I'm 22 and we're going to invest in like Gen Z, and that was like a big part of the pitch. And he was like, listen, like I can see that you're very passionate about this. If you want to last long term in this industry, you need to like dissect what it is that makes your perspective different beyond just your age. And that really stuck with me, and so that's contributed a lot to like how I think about the naming the founders that we want to invest in, and stepping away from more demographic language.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think more people need to hear that, because you're going to grow out of whatever age you are. Like whether you're 20s, 30s, 40s, it's like...
I think it is like a little challenging though, because that will be the story that's pushed upon you unless you create a different one.
And even when you ask for it to be a different story, it's still sometimes pushed upon you. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about your children's book. Mm-hmm. So, it's funny, like in my day-to-day life, I do meet some authors here and there. Mm-hmm. Children's book authors. Like, other than Dina at Lux, I actually don't think I can come up with like another children's book author that I've met recently. It's so interesting and different, and a children's book also for adults. Like, I tell me all about it. Where did the idea come from? Why children's book for adults? As sort of like the little preface at the end. And yeah, give me that origin story.
Okay, so with any creative output, there's always this primordial soup of inputs.
Totally.
So some of the things I was thinking about at the time were, one, like I was obsessed with venture. Like nights and weekends when I was at WorkOS, I was like cold emailing VCs, like trying to understand what their day-to-day life was, trying to understand like what is the incentive structure in this like incredibly powerful economic tool. And at the same time, I was a very active Twitter user. And one of the people I follow, a wonderful writer, Nikhil from Out of Pocket, he had written this children's book called If You Give a Mouse a Metamorphin. And I was like, love that format. Like, it is so difficult to make something simple. Like, if you're just writing a blog post, it's hard to make things simple. But if you're writing a children's book, you really need to think deeply about every single word that goes into it. And I was like, I think I actually retweeted it, and I was like, I'm going to do this for venture. And that was like 9 months before Seed to Harvest got published. And then from that process, I was like, okay, I have the medium, but I don't know what is going to be the message or like what's going to be in it. And so that was like the next journey of figuring out what was going to be in it. And I actually woke up from a dream, and I had this dream about a farmer watering their seeds in like a smaller pot, and then it grew to a bigger pot, and I was like, oh, farming is the metaphor that I'm going to use to write this book. And then from there it was like, okay, let me make like a 1-page doodle of like how I think venture capital works within this analogy. I sent it out to a bunch of folks for feedback. They came back to me with feedback. It went out to like 10 pages and then 40. And there's so many people involved. Like if you look at the first page of the book, I also raised a GoFundMe to get an illustrator involved. I did test pages with 5 people and ended up actually working with my brother, who's an amazing...
I know. He illustrated it?
Oh, yeah. He was like 18. It was during COVID, too, so me and my 2 brothers were living at my parents' house, and we were like working on this book together, and it was fabulous. I'd like come into his room, and he'd be coloring, and like seeing it come to life in that way was, really special.
That's such a special memory and like moment in time too, that it was COVID. I didn't realize that he did it with you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How do you think about, so you wrote this children's book. You talk about how you're an avid Twitter user. Mm-hmm. I know you also do some like longer form writing, like blogs. What's your take now on like the importance of marketing as a firm, and how do you spend your time? Because there's so many different avenues. Hence, you're also on a podcast. We'll add in another one.
I'm also on a podcast.
Yeah.
I think the written word is just so powerful and underutilized. It's also like writing is challenging. Writing a really strong piece is really challenging. I feel lucky that my late English teacher, Mrs. Floto, in high school had us write an essay a day for like my entire semester. And so I got a lot of practice then. It was all persuasive writing. And then I'm just like I'm gonna mispronounce this word, ferocious reader. I've read like
perfectly.
Thousands of books, and so I feel like I know the elements of a story, and I know when a piece like really sings. So I'm moving more into long form now. I've experimented with different things. So in 2021, I started a podcast called Seed to Harvest. We have like amazing like Midas list VCs, like incredible founders. Wait, you were on the podcast.
Was I?
Were you? I thought we recorded an episode.
Maybe.
Okay, maybe I have to bring it out of retirement.
Yeah, I was going to say. I don't know. It's hard to remember because if I did, it was like a while ago.
It would have been on Zoom. So I started it, and it was like remote recording using like Riverside, which is great. But I think like today, this is the gold standard. Like in person, high production value, video podcasts have become the standard. And so I took a step back and I was like, okay, how do I want to communicate the story of what I'm building? And I'm going back to long form writing. So I'm launching a Substack.
Whoa.
Which I'm
You heard
excited
it here
about.
first?
You heard it here first. We're going to be sharing why we invested in companies, the principles that I've learned from legendary investors who I've had the great joy of spending time with in San Francisco, and how we think about the future behind genius. So I think a lot of people are going in this direction of like more video content, but because it takes such creative energy to focus on it, they're like letting go of the long form writing, which I actually think is one of the things that you probably feel this, like there's an ambient knowledge in your head where you're like, oh, I remember that piece. Like Roy Bahat has a great piece on like affordable intros, and he must have written it like 5, maybe 7 years ago. And whenever a founder like asks like, or someone asks me for an intro, and I'll send that to them. I'm like, here's like a great example of like how to do it. So I feel like those things really like stick in your head in a different way.
And they're so shareable.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the beauty of writing.
It's really hard to skim a video.
You can't really. I mean, 2x speed, but then you kind of like, oh, I kind of missed that. Oh, I kind of missed that.
Yeah. So
that's very exciting.
Long form writing.
And then what about the podcast? What's the future for the podcast? Or are you feeling like writing's the full focus now?
Let me tell you my idea. This is just an idea I've been like brainstorming on, but I think like my dream is to do like a Call Her Daddy podcast tour vibe where I do like live podcast events, like a one night only at the Palace Fine Arts Theater in San Francisco, and we bring on like legendary investors. I think that would be really cool. So more to come on that soon. In the meantime, I'll be focusing on long form writing.
I love that. I think honestly with things like that, you have to test one out and see how it goes. And especially if you're going to do it in that format, in San Francisco, you already have so many connections. It's the tech hub. It would crush. It would go so well.
It's also just like fun. Like I went to a film premiere for this movie Planet by the Story Company, and it was incredible. But it was so fun. They rented out that theater. There was a bunch of like VCs and founders. Like I was sitting next to Augustus Rico from Rainmaker, and then one of my anonymous Twitter mutuals who I met for the first time. Is quite well known. I was like, oh, hello.
It's so funny when they're anonymous too.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what they look like.
Yeah. He was like, oh, we're mutuals. And I was like, are we? And then he like told me his name, which I won't share, but I was like, oh, yes, we are. Like we've been mutuals for like 5 years. They're just like anonymous. So yeah, that but it was cool. It's like you get to sit next to people who have a shared interest and like get to chat, and like that becomes part of your story. So I'd love to provide that opportunity in SF.
And I think people are looking for unique ways to connect. Like, I don't know if I told you about this. I would have invited you if I remembered you were in town, but we did like a GPLP happy hour and show.
Ooh.
And like, I'm a big Broadway fan, I love my plays and musicals. And so I was like, everyone goes to dinners. Everyone goes to dinners around conferences. Everyone sees each other at conferences. It's like all the same stuff, which is lovely. But it's fun to do something that's very like authentically you. And I feel like totally having this in like a movie theater space and, bring people together in like a beautiful palace of fine arts. Like that's so you. And I just think, that would be super epic.
So you're hearing it here on the pod. If it's not done in the next year,
we're going to hold you accountable.
What's up?
You got to do it. You just got to pick a date. That's so much of this stuff. And renting out a theater is not that expensive. I don't know if you know that, but I did it before for the Taylor Swift screening, her documentary. She's got a bunch of like founders and VCs in a room, and it wasn't that expensive.
Oh,
something to think about.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sure you too, get a lot of inbound from emerging fund managers on how to know if I should start a fund, why should I start a fund. You are now like deep deploying Fund 2. Very few fund managers, by the way, even make it to Fund 2. What's your advice to someone who is maybe like at a big firm right now or is like an operator and thinking about starting a firm? What is your number one piece of advice for them? And maybe something that you share behind the scenes that you haven't yet shared?
I feel like there's an element of it where if you're asking the like when questions, it hasn't quite like percolated. And so I almost feel like that's like a really great time to like learn what your individual style would be if you're at a big firm, like what would you do differently, and have a very clear version of that. Because I feel like when it's time, you really know. You're like, okay, this is it, and this is going to be like a big challenge to climb up this mountain, but it's going to be one I'm really excited to partake in and have the autonomy to, make commitments to founders who I'm really excited to work with, and there's no red tape around any internal politics or getting it through. It's just you and your decisions.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
For better or for worse.
It's interesting. Making decisions is such a big part of our job. Like you're talking now about the decision to start a firm, but we make so many decisions every single day, which founders to back, which founders to pass on, which co-investors to spend more time with, which, LPs, honestly, we want to take their checks, right? It's a lot of little decisions. Do you have like a decision-making framework or something that you use to make hard decisions? Because for me, it sounds silly, but I love the Oprah quote, if you don't have the answer, be still and it will come to you. So like I do a lot of like being still and journaling and it comes to me. What's your decision-making framework?
My decision-making framework. So I'll say this is like, I think having peace of mind is one of the most important things you can do for making a decision. And so whenever I'm making an important decision, I want to make sure like my body and mind are sound. Like I've had a good workout, I've eaten a good meal, I've spent time with my friends, and I think it can't be underestimated like how important it is to prepare your like physical body for making an important decision, which is why I had stayed in San Diego for so long, because obviously like it's great to be in San Francisco or New York and you're meeting people and you're making all these connections, but being in San Diego and having the peace of mind to step away from everything and be like, I'm just going to focus on making this like one really important investment decision. That's what I really focus on. So do like a lot of meditation, yoga, but just like, moving my body is really big in that. So one is preparing your body to make the decision, because I think that there's an element of body intelligence that can come into it. Maybe you say like, okay, I'm going to make this decision, and if you've like prepared yourself correctly, you may feel it like, ooh, I feel tight in my throat. Ooh, I feel like weird in my stomach about this. Like I feel like tense in my shoulders. And then you're like, okay, well, why do I feel tense in my shoulders? Like, why do I feel, or maybe you feel this like overwhelming sense of joy. And so I think that your body can help you answer a lot of the questions that you might be stuck in your head for otherwise. So I think that's a big element of that. We can go deeper into like investment frameworks, but I think when I'm making a really important decision, it's like your body stores a lot of that like emotion that's crucial to it.
And I think we're learning more about that every day. Like there's that book, The Body Keeps Score, where like your body
totally
tells you so much. So you hinted at the move from San Diego to SF, which is very exciting. And I know that you've been crushing it in the Bay. Why did you make the move? What was like the final straw? And, you're now in the Bay doing the classic venture thing, which is epic. But, that means San Diego is just where you visit. So talk to me about the move.
Talk to you about the move. I remember I was preparing for our second annual meeting, and I just want to say, like, I'm like so grateful for the opportunities that I've had in my life. Like when I was a little girl, like always wanted to live by the ocean, like have an ocean view. Like I lived in this amazing apartment in San Diego, had an ocean view. Like my family was close, my friends were close. Had an amazing office in La Jolla that also looked at the ocean. And like I feel like my lifestyle and how things were coming together were like everything that I'd ever dreamed of. And then I did this experience out in Abanya in Death Valley where did like a cleansing ceremony where this like wizard man took us through. This sounds so woo-woo. I feel like this episode is very, but he took us through this exercise. So it's like 200 degrees in this RV. He converted the inside with like cedar slats, and he has this big rock chimney, and then he throws water on it. And so he asked us to like dip our hands in the water and place like our intentions. And one of my intentions was like getting clarity on what was next, because I was feeling like I was really happy, but I was like, there's something more here and I don't know what it is. And then he threw that on the fire, and then he walked us through like, what does your dream life look like? And in my dream life, I was like, had a family, had like a cute little dog. I was living in San Diego, and then I was like, I think like while I am living my dream life, I think I need to go live like another version. And I actually like went through my brain, and like it was like a visualization of like excavating like all the anxieties that I had around like making certain decisions. And then I woke up the next day and I had a dream, and I was like, I need to move to San Francisco. Wow. It was like I woke up and I was like, I need to move to San Francisco. And it was really challenging because I'm very close with my family and my mom. I was like, there's no one asking me to move to San Francisco. It wasn't something where I needed to go. It was just like I felt called to go. And I was like, this is my journey. And it was interesting when I was in the process of moving, I was like, oh, not that I wasn't excited about it, but it almost felt like it was like this obligation to answer the calling. It wasn't like a, woo, like I was like, this is going to be like hard logistically. It's going to be hard because I'm not going to see my family as much. But I just had to go. And I've been there for 1.5 years now, and I feel like it's really pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I've learned a lot about myself, gotten to spend time with like some amazing investors, and I was missing that like apprenticeship in San Diego. It was like harder to get that more often, but
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, so that's why I'm at Death Valley Banya.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's so fun to hear like the early innings of why and when people do things, because I think it's not what you would expect. Like you would expect maybe, like a dream, or like a mentor said, we got to get you up here. We got to spend more time, or whatever it is. But that's so cool.
No one was.
No one was asking.
Oh, well, I was going up like once a month, so it was like.
Yeah, but it's so different than living there and doing the like last minute dinners and the last minute things.
running into my LPs and founders at the gym, like that.
Yeah.
Like your life is just very intertwined.
On Trailblazers, we spotlight founders who succeed by doing things differently, not by following the playbook, but by rewriting it. Many of those unconventional builders and the VCs backing them run on Brex because it helps them scale with speed and focus. From smart corporate cards and high-yield banking to AI-powered expense management, Brex gives startups the financial stack they need from day one so they can spend more time building and less time managing back-office operations. More than 30,000 companies, from breakout startups like Anthropic and Cursor to global leaders like DoorDash and Plaid, trust Brex to help them spend smarter and move faster. That's why we, as a venture firm and also the podcast, run on Brex too. Sign up at brex.com/trailblazerspod to get started and claim exclusive rewards. That's brex.com/TRAILBLAZERSPOD. RocketReach is the leading sales and lead intelligence solution trusted by sales, marketing, recruiting, and business development teams to grow their businesses. Whether you're looking for a developer halfway around the world, a C-level executive in New York, or a potential investor in Silicon Valley, we connect you directly. With RocketReach, you can easily access the most comprehensive, accurate compilation of emails and phone numbers on Earth. That puts you in front of the right people faster and backs you up with a database that reaches across industries, markets, and titles, using AI to continually improve the quality of your contacts. With RocketReach, you can reach anyone so you can reach higher. Many of you know I love cold outreach. It's been the root of many of my success so far, and this is the tool that I've used the whole time. Trailblazer listeners get 15% off any plan at rocketreach.co/trailblazers. That's rocketreach.co/trailblazers. So what's been like the craziest run in an SF that you're like, this would never happen in San Diego? Or like a last minute invite that you're able to do?
Shout out Carta. Carta got me courtside tickets to the Golden State Warriors game. And across the room, I see this guy and he like looks kind of familiar. And I was like, wait a minute. And I like went up to him and I was like, you look so familiar. Like, how do I know you? And he was like, oh, like I'm Pejman. And it was Pejman from Pear, who I had met like a year and a half prior. And I remember being so nervous for the meeting. Like I literally brought like, I don't know, I brought like a deck of cards. So I was like, maybe we'll play a game. Like I was but we ended up having this great conversation. The advice he gave to me was just like, he was an early investor in Dropbox, and he was like, it's one investment that makes your career, so all you should be doing is just like work as hard as possible to find like what is your career defining investment. And I was like doodling it out, and I was like showing him like the doodles I had made of his advice, and he remembered it like at the game. He was like, oh, like like are you still doodling? Like I loved your drawings. So that was a very surreal one. But yeah, shout out Carta. I love my fund admin team.
Wow, that's insane. That's like a really big get.
Yeah.
I will say one thing that I think is so epic about you, and you hint at this with the technical storytellers framing, but like you are writing in a notebook now, you doodle, you brought cards, you have this very like playful storytelling creative side to you. You wrote a book, but then you also are like a technical engineer who can like really underwrite super difficult stuff. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about the technical side of things.
Ooh, okay. I'm excited.
We're going to bring out your chops because they're very impressive. So talk to me a little bit more about like the technical founders that you get excited about these days. What are some areas that you are wanting to invest in more? And if there's any certain technical breakthroughs or areas that you're like, we are obsessed with this, we're spending a lot of time focused on it, because I know that you have a lot of insight here.
Yeah, sure. First off, yeah, I think like I take the work seriously, but I don't take myself seriously.
Which is the best combo.
Very important
to
me. So on the technical side, one of the things that I did when I moved to SF is I was like, okay, we like really need to bring more rigor into investing and like continue to learn, because ultimately like as a venture firm, your product is the decision-making framework you have for investments, and that should be focused on like continuously updating that, and then in the next stage of the firm, we'll be focusing a lot on like the support and how do we get better at that. But I think the decision-making framework for like who actually becomes part of your community is something we wanted to focus on. So I hired Chumba Izikai on our team, and we got like 500 applications for an investment analyst because I posted on Twitter. And what he did was he went back and pulled data from like LinkedIn, Crunchbase, and studied the last $100 billion plus exits. So we were like, okay, let's actually take a look at like what exited for $1 billion. And what we found in the study is like there are a lot of correlations, but like on enterprise, 100K plus ACV, like vertical softwares. And we went back and we're like, okay, what are the opportunities for companies to build like an AI native version of these companies that have already exited for like $1 billion, but the value they can provide to the customer is like 3, 5, 10x, because if you have agentic AI, they can actually like do the work for the technology. And so we have taken that and made investments like in the agentic AI space. It actually led to us making an investment in this. I'm trying to think if I can talk about it. I wrote the blog piece and it got approved. I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
So Chumba had found this company called Audit Board. They sold for $3 billion. All they do is manage the SOX audit process. So it's different than SOC 2. It's like the SOX audit process, something every public company has to do. There's a few exceptions, but it costs them like $7 to $10 million a year to do this internal audit. And this company, Audit Board, is like a insane winner in like a bunch of portfolios. It's an LA-based company. They hadn't raised that much money, and they had this incredible sale. And Chumba previously worked in boutique M&A for software companies. And he was like, okay, if this private equity company bought them for such a high revenue multiple, they must have like very sticky customers with like high retention. And he was like, okay, who's building like the AI native Audit Board? And we found this incredible team who's a 6+ year SOX agent, SOX audit veteran from EY, and then her best friend from middle school in Taiwan, who's a Harvard-trained machine learning engineer who's early at Snorkel, and they together built like agentic frameworks for actually doing the work of SOX audit, and that was really exciting. So we built our own independent conviction based on our research on an opportunity that would be really exciting. Then we canvassed the whole space for a company we thought would be like the best position. There's other companies in the space, but none of them have like the domain expertise. And so to your point on like what do we look for, one of the core things that we're looking for specifically in like when we look at applied AI is the domain expertise of the founders and what they're applying. And we ended up introducing them to their lead investor, which was pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, more on that to come soon. And then there's this other team who is like 20+ year veterans at Intuit, and they have like a long history of being technical. And then like there's a core problem in payroll that companies just can't solve today, which is like doing real-time payroll that is accurate to like all the changing regulations and different countries and cities. Like Philadelphia, for example, has like Philadelphia the city, and then also Pennsylvania, and then also like the US. So yeah, that is, I don't know, that is like very interesting to go deeper on that. And they had the expertise to actually like build the agentic technology to do the work for that. So
it sounds awesome. And how do you source these opportunities? So you have all this research, like you and your, badass analyst are like, okay, we see that there's opportunities in these 10 different sectors. How do you go about finding them?
Oh yeah, well I think that was more like something new that's come out of our research recently. And I would say actually like our main source of opportunities actually like our incredible like emerging and established investor networks. Like 70% of our deals are like inbound, where people read some of our stuff, like they click with it, or they meet us and like, oh, we want to work with them. And then they'll send us opportunities. So 30% is more our like proprietary sourcing, identify an opportunity, go hunt for whatever the best team we think will be in that category is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you filter the inbound? So that's the other thing. Because like I think that's a lot of folks, especially with the media presence like you do get a lot of inbound. What's like the filtering process there? Like what do you look for? Let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, Paige has been on my dream investor list. We would love to get Behind Genius involved. Like what's your recommendation for getting through the noise?
I think a lot of it has to do with like not necessarily like the way people reach out, but like who they are and what their company is and why they're doing it. And I don't think there's any like cold email advice I can give for that. It's more like, does this founder, okay, well, I'll walk you through like maybe our more basic ones, like US and Canada based, pre-seed and seed. We try to invest in companies that haven't raised a ton of capital yet. We're, I would say, like medium sensitive on valuation, so usually looking to invest like sub 20 million. In certain cases, we'll make exceptions, but in those cases, we need to do like a full model out of the return profile and be like, okay, there's a clear path to like $1 billion in ARR, because that's what that's kind of like the like what the firms in San Francisco are underwriting to. And while we don't necessarily have to be like one-to-one with the underwriting process of firms in San Francisco, it is important to consider with downstream capital getting more competitive that companies have a clear shot of that if we are investing at a higher valuation. There's more, I don't think you have to have like as strict an underwriting process for companies that are, not like higher valuations from the returns perspective. And then we look at, okay, so they're like geographically good, stage good. The next is like any like portfolio conflict. So we have 55 investments, and I want to make sure that there's like not a lot of overlap. It's allowed us to build like an incredibly diverse portfolio, from solving the mold crisis to electrifying rail, to like AI agents for manufacturing. Is like when we pick a team in the space, we want to be like, okay, this is like the best team in the space, and we're gonna go look in other spaces after that. So after that, like then I would say like if they pass all of those and it seems like a really compelling opportunity, we'd be like, all right, let's take a first call. Let's learn more about the founder's journey and really understand like the compelling why or unique insight that they have on the business that they're building, and then how they actually talk about the business, like kind of poking and prodding at like what details do you know about like which elements of it. And we're really looking for founders who like, know their business inside and out. Like it's very clear they're like really in it. And then also have the ability to transcend from just going in it to like being able to look at the landscape outside and be like, okay, this is like, these are our inspirations, these are some of our competitors, this is how we think that we are better positioned to succeed than those competitors. And then we'll go through the process of doing a bottoms-up market approach. So Chumba will put together like a full market map of like, here's how many customers there are, here's how much they're paying you today. What does that market size look like? And then based on like a percentage of success, like what does it look to get 1% of the market? What does it look to get like 3? What does it look to get 5? And in some cases, like we invest in this company, Hosty, that's building AI agents for the restaurant industry. Like capturing 1% of that market is $100 million ARR business. So there's a lot of room for like just at the current what customers are paying them and the full scope of customers. You're like, okay, there's like a clear line to that. But in some other markets that are more niche, there would be like a deeper level of questions that we would bring to this second call if we're like, okay, maybe it's like, maybe the market's smaller, and like, do we believe that this founder could get like 50% of the market? And in some cases that's a yes, but it's also one of those things where you're like, we need to like really take a deeper look at this. So I would say that's been one of the biggest changes in our investment strategy, is going really deep on that. And like, don't get me wrong, like I'm still a very founder first investor. It's more just like the process and rigor that we bring to the decision making, and then communicating that back to the founder helps us win in competitive situations. We're like, hey, look, we like did the work to understand this opportunity, and we will be able to help you like tell your story better through this process. So I love like sharing our work with founders as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it's so appreciated too, because a lot of the times too, you're like passing for now, but maybe later it actually makes sense, and you want to deepen that trust.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we'll do a reference call as well. So that just like kind of understanding, like, I would say like when we get to that process, it's more like a confirmatory, like we've gone really deep on the founder, at that point in time. So we just want to understand, like, is all of this that was said to be true, like how have they shown up with integrity and character in the rest of like their business career, and like, do you like, yeah. And then we send the wire.
Yeah, and then the money goes out.
Do
you share with founders, like, this is our process, this is how we think about it? Because I think a lot of VCs too, it sometimes can be a little bit vague. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're sharing it now here with us, but how transparent are you guys?
I think I would say we're like decently transparent, but I do want to write like a longer piece on our process and just like explain how it's changed, because I think when I got into investing, I was like, oh, I'm leading with intuition. And while I think that's still like a massive part of my investing, it's definitely much more like, okay, like let's make sure we have crossed our T's, dotted our I's, and it like brings that conviction to the founder as well. But yeah, I want to do a longer form piece on it. We usually are like, hey, this is the process. Like, we're gonna, walk through like your story. We want to build this model. Now that I'm thinking about it though, we should like probably more be like more upfront about how we think about it.
Yeah, well, I just feel like it's the fact that you're putting so much work into it already. It's so nice to say, like, this is where you are in the pipeline. Like, This is how our process works. We make decisions in X amount of time, and then sticking to it. Because I think there's a lot of VCs who are like, yeah, we'll get back to you within 48 hours. Or we'll give you an answer in a week.
I think it's hard sometimes. Like, I don't, like, I think in a lot of cases where we've invested, and this is like something that's changed, is like I feel like in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the call, I'm like, yeah, like, yes, like this will elevate the bar for the rest of the portfolio. And that's like my goal, is like every investment we make should be like continuously better in our process, in our level of conviction. In the case of like Maniva, for example, we like doubled our average check size. That's like a very concentrated holding in our our Fund 2 portfolio is probably going to end up between 24 and 25 companies, which is like pretty concentrated for a pre-seed and seed stage firm.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, just briefly, we can touch on this. It's a little bit in the weeds, but because you mentioned concentration, portfolio construction, and your favorite words.
Portfolio construction.
How do you guys think about it? I mean, so you have 55 companies, but to be clear, that's over 2 funds.
2 funds, yeah.
How do you guys think about it now? And like doing that check size at double what your normal is.
Yeah, that was epic.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I was just like, oh, like we had met them like kind of in the. Maybe I'll tell you about like how we changed it so I can explain like how it usually is, because I think investing is one of those things where like you have these rules. And then there has to be something like truly exceptional for you to break it. So in the case of Maniva, we had met them. Actually, we met them because Henry Shee from Super read my piece, The Technical Storyteller, and we were at lunch, we were discussing it, and then he was like, oh my gosh, like, you need to meet Ray. He is a great technical storyteller. And he had built Super to like $1 billion plus in sales, like incredibly strong founder. And then we meet Ray. Immediately I'm like, he's like, the stories he was telling were just like crazy. Like, he grew up in Canada, moved when he was 12 from South Korea, and he was like, I literally have the scars on my hands to prove that I worked in factories when I was younger. And like, it is his life's mission to automate factories because of the terrible experience he had, like, growing up working in them. and then went on to University of Waterloo to study mechatronics, met his co-founder, and then went to Google DeepMind, and then started Maniva to work on embodied AI in manufacturing. And so it was like, oh, like this is your life's calling to do this. And so that was like very clear. And then they were in the middle of like a competitive process. So where we ended up landing, I was like, okay, I want to write a bigger check. And I remember I WhatsApp messaged one of our LPAC board members, Michael Kim from Sandana, and I was like, hey, like I have this company, like I have like a lot of conviction, like I'm thinking of sizing up the check. And he was like, if you have a lot of conviction, it's like the seed stage company, just like double your check size. So the way that I think about portfolio construction is you kind of want to have like pretty similar check sizes. So our conviction should be binary and not like, oh, we think this founder has like this much potential, so we're gonna like size the check accordingly. We should be writing like in Fund 2 is basically like $250K to probably like I'll have to check exactly how many companies, but when I looked at like the median, it's like a graph that looks like this on $250K, and just being very consistent with that helps you. It's like a variable to remove in the process. And then from a portfolio construction, what we learned from Fund 1 is we made 5 discovery checks, so like $10K. And then this was inspired by like the Hustle Fund model. So they have like a very broad portfolio, and we were like, okay, like let's try this out and see if it's for us. And I think ultimately what I landed on in like my own investing styles, I'm very inspired by Josh Kushner at Thrive. Like he's just like concentrated, like these are like the companies that you want to like, if they were paintings they'd hang in the Louvre type B, which I love, and going in with like really strong conviction. So that's like what I'm looking to continue to move towards. So we did 27, and then this one will be 24 to 25, and hopefully continuing that level of concentration. It's also like harder to have like a deep relationship and like support the founder if there's like a massive portfolio and a smaller team. So
no, that makes perfect sense. I think everyone struggles with that, is like figuring out how they can, especially solo GPs, juggle it all. And I think the answer is often to just be more concentrated and be more conviction focused.
Yeah.
If you work in venture or startups, you know the constant juggling act. Replying to messages from co-investors, founders, LPs, customers, and teammates, all hitting your personal number. I know this very well. We all hand out our cell, which means your EA can't help an iMessage, and important threads get buried. That's why I'm very excited about Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's built for founders and investors like us who want communication that feels personal but stays organized. Quo gives you a dedicated business line on your existing cell phone. And if you already have a business number, you can bring it with you for free. Plus, you'll get call summaries, transcripts, and an AI voice agent called Sona that can answer and schedule when you're offline. We're actually cooking up something fun with the Quo team right now and using that same voice AI tech in a new way for our firm. More soon, but it's a great reminder that you can use voice AI to stay top of mind of your customers' needs. Quo is trusted by over 90,000 businesses and rated .1 on G2 for customer satisfaction. You can get 20% off your first 3 months at quo.com/trailblazers. That's quo.com/trailblazers. I've actually used Gusto at 3 different companies, and every time it's been such a relief. It's simple, it's reliable, my paycheck was always on time, no drama. And unlike the big clunky payroll systems out there, Gusto is affordable and designed for teams like ours. Gusto is online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. It's all-in-one, remote-friendly, and incredibly easy to use, so you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/trailblazers and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/trailblazers. One more time, gusto.com/trailblazers. Okay, let's get into the lightning round.
Okay.
Answer whatever comes to mind. First thing it pops in your head, okay?
Okay.
Book in hand or podcast in ears?
Book in hand.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
Ooh, okay. What time is your ideal wake up? Or is it more go to bed early?
I need to get 8 hours of sleep. I I probably go to bed at like 10:30, 11. I wake up at 7:30. I get in the gym. I go to the gym before I do anything. And then, start my day. But yeah, I gotta take care of myself first.
Yeah. It's like you were saying earlier, right? Like, take care of yourself so you make good decisions.
Yeah, I didn't do it today, so I was like in the studio like, woo!
Yeah, she was doing jumping jacks for anyone before we started.
Like I said, like the body is a big...
I get it. Gotta get it all out. Cooking dinner or ordering in?
Cooking dinner.
VC or bootstrapping?
For what?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, for what?
Whatever you want it to be. Answer whatever
know.
comes to mind.
I mean, I don't know. I have to have a specific situation to answer that on.
Okay, maybe, I guess it's hard to say it to a VC. You'll probably choose VC. But I was going to say, what would you prefer if you were starting something?
I feel like if I had like a world-changing calling, I'd like 100% go VC. Like,
but it's a very specific way of building.
Yeah. But like if you have, like I think about someone like Ariana at Moldco, it's like she has a very specific world-changing vision. There's like, it doesn't make sense to bootstrap something like that. It's like you have this vision and you need to execute it, and it needs capital to not like necessarily like grow like paid marketing, but it's like to build out the business, it requires capital, and it requires like venture, like fast, like high moving growth targets. So
or even like hiring top talent. Like you have to
hiring top talent. So yeah, I think I'd choose VC in that scenario. I mean, like low key, like I feel like venture firms are not bootstrap necessarily, but like the way management fees work are like you got to run a lean business. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's like semi bootstrapped.
Yeah, you're
like,
kind of running a bootstrap startup now. That's funny.
Yeah.
You're a VC who's running a bootstrap firm.
Yeah.
Networking dinner or big conference?
Am I speaking?
Whatever you want to come up with in your mind. You could say speaking at a big conference, or attending a big conference, or attending a networking dinner.
I want to speak more at like large conferences. Like I'd love to do like a Web Summit or like an Aspen Ideas Festival, or like a TechCrunch Disrupt would be sick. So I'd say that. But I love a dinner of 6 to 8 people.
Yeah, small, especially small.
Yeah.
Love that. Hire slow or fire fast?
Yes.
To both?
Yeah.
Which is more important to you?
I think the hire slow. Yeah.
Hire slow, okay.
Yeah.
10 small wins or 1 big moonshot?
1 big moonshot.
We're in the business of moonshots.
Mm-hmm.
Being early or being right?
That one's a hard one. I mean, obviously, it's great being right. But I think it's, like, more fun to be early.
Because you make more money a lot of the time.
Yeah. Or just even, like, with, like, Olivia Dean. Like, I've been listening to Olivia Dean since, like, 2020. And so I'm like, I was early. Like, no one knows about me, but I was early.
I love it.
Yeah.
You need those, like, those, like, crypto fan startups where they were like, we're going to financially compensate early fans of artists. I was like, none of those worked, but, like, Olivia Dean, I feel like I was early to Teddy Swims. Some of these people, I'm like, no, I was buying their stuff early. I was listening to their stuff early. Never post on socials again, or never fundraise another $1 again.
Never post on socials again. Wait, but I would, like, write. Like, I would, like, have, like, a little, like, actual physical mailing list. I like, write.
Love that.
To people.
Listen, it's offline. It counts.
Yeah.
AI overhyped or underhyped?
Underhyped.
What's your take there?
It's I think, like, the application layer AI is, you just look at the value that's been created in, like, infrastructure, and then we haven't even, like, really dipped our toes into, like, application layer AI.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. I've seen the future in SF, and it is bright and a little scary.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to come. Paige, can you tell everyone how they can find you on socials and support you and the work you're doing?
Follow our Substack at Behind Genius. I'm most active, I feel like, on LinkedIn these days. Honestly, kind of a hot take.
I like it.
I'm on LinkedIn, Paige Finn Doherty, and then I'm also on Twitter at Paige Finn with 3 N's.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, Paige. This was so fun.
Thanks so much for having me, Erica. This is wonderful.
On Trailblazers, we're always talking about multiplying your impact, and that's exactly what Athena helps you do. Athena pairs you with a world-class executive assistant who becomes a true force multiplier for your business and your life. Working with my Athena assistant has been transformative. Gab was instrumental in raising Park Rangers Capital's fund in ways that I could have never imagined an assistant could contribute, from closing six-figure checks to identifying new LPs we should meet to matching my tone perfectly in follow-up emails. He's elevated my capacity as a founder by giving me more time to focus on the highest leverage work. Athena isn't just about scheduling meetings, it's about unlocking leverage. Hundreds of founders, investors, and executives trust Athena to free their time and scale their impact. Athena is offering our listeners $2,000 off for their first year of service and priority onboarding. And you want that, trust me, there's a very long wait list. When you're ready to multiply your impact and free up time for the things only you can do, go to athenago.me/Erica-Wenger. That's athenago.me/ERICA-WENGER. Thanks so much for listening to the Trailblazers podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. You can also support our work by sharing it with a friend or leaving a quick review. It helps more contrarian builders find us. For more on Park Rangers Capital and our community of elephant founders, head to parkrangerscap.com or find me online at Erica_Wenger. Until next time, keep trailblazing.